So we have a huge nodal shift happening, and I say huge because moving from gate 36 and 6 to gate 22 and 47 is quite a shift in energy. So this energy was going to be with us from June 13th, 2025, right until November 2nd. So quite a long time to be with the energy. And as with all nodal energies, it's going to move in retrograde, which means that it's going to count down from the sixth line and move right to down to the first line. So as we move through each different energy, it changes the expression subtly. And so the background frequency. Now we're talking about the nodes. Keep in mind that this is a background frequency that we're all living in. There will be some people that are more linked into this energy, and those will be people who link into the gates in some way, and that would be people who have the 12, the 22, the 47, or the 64, or all of those gates, or some of those gates, or one of those gates. The ones that sometimes can be karmically inspired, and I think that that is one of the big things about this energy is it can be connected to karma because it is the nodes. And usually if you link in and it brings a new channel, so in other words, you have a hanging gate 64 and you get 47 and you have the 64 47 for the duration of the nodal cycle, then that may change things up in your life and might be impactful changes in your life is the same as if you have a hanging gate 12 and it brings a 1222 channel. But again, all of us can be impacted by this in some way because we are interacting with other people and we are in the energy of this nodal environment. And so it can definitely be part of everyone's life. And I always, as I said before, and most people will have known that I say the same thing. It's like sometimes we're part of the audience and sometimes we're part of the movie. When you have a connection with these gates that is going to bring some level of definition, especially if it's going to be bringing emotional definition, that's going to really be impactful. And so if you have an open emotional center and you're getting the 1222 channel activated, this could be very impactful for you. It is a time that if you are usually somebody who, well, obviously you would have a different authority. You wouldn't have emotional authority if you have an open solar plexus. I wouldn't know what authority you have because everybody's got their own configuration. There's so many different types of authorities, but it is a time to really play with the idea of sometimes for such a long transit and play with the idea of emotional waves, emotional energy, and seeing if that affects you with your authority in a temporary way. I know that some people say that they're open emotionally, and then when they get an emotional wave that's sort of with them for a long time, it can cause them to make decisions that normally would have been really good and easy to make, but maybe not, won't give them the type of results that they usually want. And so maybe it is time for some people who are getting a temporary emotional wave to kind of sit with the energy or even sleep on any decisions just to see if that makes a difference. But I would do it both ways to really tap into the concept of how does this work for you? And it's a great time to really figure it out of how these energies work with you. And of course, because gate 47 is an awareness gate, this is a time of great awareness potentially for all of us. It is a time where we could have downloads that we had before start to make sense. Gate 64 is connected to super consciousness, and if you have a hang gate 64 and you don't have the gate 47, the full channel, then you always have this inspiration, this fuel, but not necessarily anywhere to put it until you get those connections. So this might be a time where you have huge downloads that kind of make sense. Gate 47 is this, it's like a filter. So you have this big gate 64, you have all this energy coming in and this pressure. And gate 47 is saying, okay, what matters here? What do I need in my life to help my life be better? What makes sense? What is going to give me an aha moment? Like, oh, this happened like this, and that's why it happened like that. Those are the types of things that can come with his energy. They're not only the types of things, but it's very helpful because keep in mind that 6447 channel is fully connected to this concept of lived life. It's experiential energy. It's connected to the circuitry of abstract energy. And so it is always going to be something about lived life, experiences that you've had. How have they worked out? What did you glean from it? What was a waste of time? What do you want to take into your future so that the next cycle that you have hopefully will work the way you want it to work in a better way. So that's that type of energy. Of course, gate 22 is emotional energy, as I mentioned, and this is a big wave of emotional energy, but it's very creative in its expression too, where this is individuality, this is sharing your spirit. This is also connected to the solar plex mutation. Not that it's directly being impacted because that's happening with gate 49 and also 55, but because the 5539 channel is linking right into, or it fuels the 1222, this is part of the mutation too. And so this can be a very impactful energy, for emotional energy and sharing your spirit and sort of connecting with your spirit. So, for a global perspective, with gate 22, an awareness gate, because it's the solar plexus gate, gate 47, also awareness gate, we have two awareness gates, but we also know that all awareness gates come with a price, and the price can be with gate 47, anxiety, and with gate 22, nervousness. That is a general aura that might be in the collective when we have this energy in play as an environmental background. So, that's something to keep in mind. And so, also gate 22 can be connected to melancholy. And so that's something to keep in mind as well, especially since we have a lot of individual energy in play. The thing about melancholy is that when we have those times of the blues or we feel really down, it can be a time to express yourself creatively, or it could be time to move your body. It could be time to go out into nature. But the one thing that is least beneficial is if you look at this energy of why do I feel blue? Everything seems to be good in my life, or I don't really have a reason. And then when you get focused in on why you feel a certain way, instead of just accepting that life is all parts of ebbs and flows and that every type of energy comes and goes, then you can let it flow as opposed to stopping it in its tracks and keeping it in place and saying there's something wrong with me. I feel this way and I shouldn't. And so this is about, if melancholy does come, let it flow the way it will, and it will. All things go up and down. And that is the nature of life. We know that everything changes, and what is up today will be down tomorrow, and what is down today will be up tomorrow. And gate 22 is individual energy, as I mentioned, but it's also fully connected to auditory. And so this might be a time where music really moves you, really makes you feel something that you haven't felt before. And so you might be inspired to listen to different types of music. You might be inspired to want to have more music in your life. You might be inspired by someone's voice and how they sound. You might like to listen to certain podcasts. You might want to just get absorbed or lost in audio or the auditory. And it might even be more impactful for you that it's too much, and maybe you need to have silence because it's almost too much when you're in this emotional energy, or the gate 22 is activated. So it could be playing out both ways, but again, you can experiment with what works for you. The 1222 channel is very active in a lot of musicians or people who work with music and audio as well. So it would make sense if you are soothed or you feel inspired by music or something that is auditory during this transit. So that kind of energy is from a personal perspective of how it might feel. And from a global perspective, we're looking at the global environment where everybody is in the same energy and everybody is interacting with the energy in a different way. Now, if we look at the most basic types of energy, we have gate 47, which can also be called oppression, and gate 22, which is called grace. What this is really talking about is we might see these types of expression on the world stage. Now, the grace that comes from gate 22 is a grace that no matter what life throws at us, we continue as humans to keep moving forward. We can walk a path that is difficult, that is trying, that is challenging, and yet we can hold ourselves high with integrity, with the concept that this too shall pass. And this is what this energy can bring, gate 22. And gate 47 is oppression, and it is exactly as you would think it would be. But when we move through each line is going to bring a different type of oppression. And oppression in its entirety is this concept of feeling like life is too heavy, it's too much. Now, when you move that together with gate 22, because they're in opposition, we know that we find grace through the oppressive times in our lives. And this is what this is bringing to us. So, in other words, it's giving us the strength, the resilience, and the ability to move through difficulties if necessary that we might feel oppressed by life. Maybe we're feeling oppressed by life, but it's giving us also this resilience, this grace to move forward. Because as humans, we can, and we have. Now, if I look at gate 22, I think that when we have the nodes moving, because we've had Neptune moving through a lot of these sort of similar gates, and when we move through gate 36, when the nodes moved through gate 36, they had moved through where Neptune had literally just left. And so what it basically, showed up as was a lot of chaos and crisis and, crazy energy and things just moving too chaotically. And also not seeing the consequences and having big expectations and just a really tumultuous energy. But again, it was almost like it was unraveling all the things that sort of Neptune had hidden away from us for all the time that it was in gate 36. And again, it can be repeats of energy that happened when Neptune was moving through. But with gate 22, we Neptune mainly moved through gate 22 when we did have the COVID crisis. And so this brings up that theme again of, is there some sort of a pandemic or a time of oppression globally where we feel as though we are not able to do what we want to do the way we wanted to do. And so this could be a reactivation of that energy in some way. I don't necessarily look at it as lockdowns, a rise of a pandemic, COVID, those types of things. That's what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is potentially something that's going to put us back in some sort of a way where we were once in that kind of feeling of changes and kind of being held in place a little bit more. Not as dramatic as we would have had with Neptune, let's say. And so I'm looking at potentially a rise of bird flu, and I look at it because this is a time for a lot of birds to be migrating and, moving around, and those types of things are going to be spreading based on the migratory path of birds. So it makes a lot of sense logically that this could be a time when that is rising. And again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm just basically sort of talking a little bit about things that I've read. It is in the food supply, other parts of the food supply. And so this looks to me like potentially there could be some issues with food supply, something that is in shortage. It doesn't mean that we don't have any food, but it just means that potentially there could be things that are or less available than they used to. And so this could be a time before we do have those nodes changing to get the things that matter the most to you if you can. And of course, if it's perishable, you can't do much about that. But ultimately, that is something that I'm looking at. And with Gate 47, we have it moving in all different stages of oppression or where we feel like we can't do what we want to do. And this can be from a feeling of self-oppression, a personal self-oppression, oppression from somebody, in our life, or ultimately oppression from an outside force, like some powers that be that are oppressing the collective in some way. So these are all different themes that we could have. Again, we have the grace to move through all of this. This is not something where we have to just suffer in silence. This is basically saying if you see these types of themes on the world stage, you will have kind of a forewarning of this potentially happening. And this is what it's all about. This is why we do the transits, so we can sort of look at the energy of what might play out. If it doesn't play out, that's wonderful. I would prefer it that way. But if it does play out, at least we have prepared and we are sort of looking at contingency plans for making sure that we feel as easy as possible as we move through the energy. Now, the dates that Neptune was moving through gate 22, for your reference, were from April 19th, 2019 to September 2019, then from January 29th, 2020 until May 10th, 2021, and finally from August 31st, 2021 until March 7th, 2022. So these are all time periods that we might have reactivations of themes that were playing out during that time. It could be personally or globally. So this is something to keep in mind. And then another thing that we can talk about with oppression is this idea of looking through the lens of life, as in, do we see everything as being dark, or do we see everything as being light, or do we see somewhere in the middle? And I think somewhere in the middle is kind of the better place because that gives us the ability to see both sides of the coin. And that's what we're encouraged to do. We're encouraged to be in balance in the middle and try and look at the world as it is. And if necessary, detach from it. Step back from the world, not have to engage in it, to be away from it. Gate 22. I mean, that is part of the 1222 channel, which is about how do you feel about being out in the world? How do you feel about interacting? How do you feel about socializing? How do you feel about doing things that maybe you don't want to do? And this is about honoring your spirit, honoring who you are, and honoring your feelings. And if you do, that's when you're going to place yourself in situations where it's more beneficial for you because you're with the right people, because you've allowed your emotions or your feelings or that inner knowing to lead you to be with the people that are right for you and to avoid the people who aren't. This could be about keeping yourself from negative influences. When I say negative influences, I just mean like people who are always negative and they just want to bring you down, and it's like they walk around with a black cloud around them and all they see is gloom, even if it's sunny and a beautiful day. And so those types of people can get you in their energy, and this is saying avoid that kind of energy if possible because it can leave you feeling oppressed even more than you might feel on your own. You might feel wonderful. And then you read the news or you watch TV or you go hang out with some people and you come back feeling really heavy. Well, if that's the case, then that's giving you the heads up to say, maybe this isn't where I should be for at least, until this transit moves on, or maybe take it in microdoses so that you're feeling that you can work with the energy instead of being pulled into it and not really knowing how to get back out of it. Because it is potential, as I said, to get into the melancholy and sort of to get stuck if we're not aware. Keep in mind that as we move into the new nodes, we're going to be moving from a first line to a sixth line. And so whenever we move into a sixth line energy, we also have a mixing of energy because a sixth line is not like a regular energy in the gate. You have your first, second, third, fourth, fifth lines, and they kind of act like the energy of the gate. But once you get to the sixth line is already looking to the future. It's always already looking to the next gate. In this case, we're bringing the past gate to the future, and we're melding it with, for instance, gate 47 is melding with gate 6, line 1. And this is talking about conflicts, wars, diplomacy or lack of diplomacy. It's bringing that perspective of feeling oppressed by the way the world is. And maybe it feels like there's just too much strife, energy for non-diplomacy, or too much conflict, too many conflicts about, benign things that don't matter, but also real conflicts in the world. And so it could feel very oppressive, like it's just too much. And because the way 47 line 6 is fashioned, it is one of those kind of special lines that doesn't have an exaltation. It only has a detriment. And so that's the energy we're moving into right away. But the nice thing is that we won't have the sixth line for very long because of the way the nodes are. It's only basically about 12 days. The longest run of the nodes, the line that we will be experiencing the most is gate 47 line 2 and gate 22 line 2. And so that's the energy that we're going to be sitting with the most. So this feeling of an oppression that you sort of can't get away from may be part of the energy that when we first move into the node. So it might feel a little bit really different and maybe to some level overwhelming. But again, this is a time for self-care, understanding that this is going to pass and that you have all the tools you need to move through the energy. And I think it's quite interesting that almost exactly when the nodes shift, we have the moon in gate 54, line 4, the line of enlightenment or endarkenment. So let's see how that plays out because again, it's a duality. It can play out either way, and we could have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it almost feels like it's imprinting that energy. This is maybe when we move through the 47 line 6, it can be like a little bit more challenging energy when we move into gate 47, line 5, and I'm sort of leaning into 47 because it can be a little bit more of a, as we said, oppressive kind of energy. We move into the energy of the saint. And this is fully aligning with the message that Pluto and Gate 42 line 2 is telling us. And this is like you can only do what you can do. Most of us don't have the power to change the trajectory of the world. Most of us don't have the power to make big differences in the world. There are, a handful of leaders if you compare them to the amount of people on Earth who make big decisions for a lot of people. And those decisions can be, catastrophic or they could be very beneficial, and somewhere in the middle. But when we worry about decisions that we can't change, we worry about the world the way it is. We worry about everything that's happening on the world stage and feel so helpless and feel oppressed to not be able to help. This is where we get into a mind space that is not healthy. And this is saying that sometimes we have to step back and realize that we can't change those things. But what can we change in our own lives, in our own community? Those are the kinds of things that we can actually take action on. And that's the truth. That's the truth that we live by. As soon as we're trying to stretch into a place where we have absolutely no control, all you feel is powerlessness. But instead of making it into a feeling of powerlessness, we shift it around and we make it into something that we can feel that we are making a difference. And again, using your energy, if you want to affect your community, to affect the places where you can. And if it means planting a little garden where you feel like you're nurturing the earth and you're getting to eat a few things, a pot on your balcony, anything, some herbs on your balcony, all those types of things bring you in connection with the concept that you can do something that brings in positive energy and light into the world. And that's what this energy is encouraging us all. Instead of getting locked in this idea of this is horrible things, these horrible things are happening and we can't change it. That just puts us in a bad mind space. It's just not the energy you want to step into if possible. And just like Gate 47 line 6 doesn't have an exaltation, Gate 47 line 5 doesn't have a detriment. So we have a balance. And this is where we're sort of seeing that we can do what we can do and leaving it at that. 47 line 4 is out in the real world. Now, if we look at 47 line 5 as being meeting with strangers, we can't help the strangers in the world, but we can help the people that we know. Gate 47 line 4 is bringing in the concept of the people who we know, our networks, those types of things, feeling oppressed by that. And that is something that might be in the environment or the background frequency at this time where we're feeling oppressed. Now, the one thing that Ra Uru Hu said is that any of the nodes that are activated by the moon, and gate 47 line 4 is activated by the moon, maybe more may be more impactful globally. So this might be where we see global forms of oppression. We might see governments oppressing people. We might see some forms of oppression, or we might even feel oppression in our own lives. But this may be more of a global thing because the fourth line is a global energy. It is connected, fully connected with the cross of planning in the first line, because it is a harmonic energy. So marry these two energies together, the first line that we're in for the global cycle of cross of planning with the fourth line of this gate 47 line 4, and we have oppression based on fear. And so once again, this is a time to disentangle ourselves from this energy and move into something different because we have the ability to move through the energy. We have all the tools. And again, grabbing the tools that you need so that you can move through the energy and feel empowered. Once again, Gate 47 is bringing in awareness that is threaded through everything. So you may have tons of aha moments that kind of bring everything together and it makes everything come into clarity because from confusion, we can get clarity. So there's always that benefit too. Interestingly enough, when we are in the time of Gate 47 line 4, we will have Mars in gate 64, and it will be giving us the full 6447 channel, which makes it more balanced, but it also makes it easier to get lost in our minds and kind of a little too lost in our thoughts. And so that's why it might be a good time to get out in nature, go for a walk, or something that sort of breaks that pattern of being too lost in your thoughts. K47 line 3 brings us to the theme of our own self-oppression, where we're kind of getting lost in our thoughts and feelings of lack of self-worth, not feeling we're good enough, internal battles with our thoughts, and those thoughts might disempower us. And so this is to know that this might be a time that this might happen. And if those are the kinds of thoughts that you're feeling, then again, going into some sort of a mechanism, or using one of your tools that will help you to move through the energy and understand that it is energy that you can work with and move through if you choose to. And as mentioned, we have the nodes in the second line for the longest, and that will be from August 6th, and it will go right until October 11th. And that's going to be in the second line. Well, the interesting thing about this is it says that you have these disempowering thoughts, or, you're getting lost in your thoughts. Being active and busy is the best kind of treatment to help that, to move through that energy. And that's what this energy 47 line 2 talks about. So being busy, not kind of being sitting with those thoughts. It's not a real time for a ton of reflection. Reflection, of course, is important for all of us at all points, but this is not a time to have extended reflection. This is encouraging you to be busy, to keep moving along out in spaces where you feel that it's a good place for you to be. And that doesn't necessarily always mean socializing. It could mean just being in your own space, in nature, playing sports, dancing, doing things that make you feel good, whatever that is. Again, especially with Gate 22, creative things that make you feel good, whatever creativity means for you, is a great way to work with the energy of Gate 47 line 2. And this is the foundation of what those energies mean. And it is really talking about the concept of sort of understanding what it means to feel this level of feeling oppressed. And since this is foundational energy, it is always an opportunity to learn as much as you can about what that energy means for you. And so there are two lines in the Rave I'Ching. One is to say that you feel like the world is against you, and that's in detriment, or alternatively, you realize that negative thoughts have to be eradicated. And so that's basically, I think, it in a nutshell. It's telling you how to work with this energy and to understand that if you get these negative Nelly thoughts, that you can shift it and bring in something more positive. And if affirmations work for you, then this might be a time when you could incorporate. In fact, for the whole nodal cycle, you definitely could use affirmations to move through this energy. So it will be potentially a very interesting time. And I do feel globally we might see, as I said, the powers that be maybe being a little bit more oppressive at certain times during this nodal cycle. We might see some form of humanity, working through limitations, because we will have Pluto in gate 60, line 6 for the last time. Again, going to give us that final message that we need to know before it moves on. And this will be happening from August 20th. Pluto will be in gate 60 right until December 4th, 2025. And there's a good chunk of time where Pluto's in gate 60 that the nodes are still in play. The nodes are going to be in 22 and 47 until November 2nd. So there's a good overlay there, which means that having the awareness of understanding how the energy is affecting you and the people around you and the world in general can really give you a heads up, a way to sort of work with the energy, empowering you as you move through it. And as soon as we move through this energy, and we go to the next nodal cycle, which will be very brief compared to this one. We're moving into two fuel gates, two pressure gates, 63 and 64. And I will definitely make a video about that nodal cycle when we get closer. And that is about it for the nodes. From my perspective, I talked a ton, but I just wanted to have a really good detailed video so that you'd have some references to go through, and I will have timestamps for everything. And until next time, take care and bye for now.